Hey everybody, we're here for another happy hour at the Wedding Pros. And this time we're talking about venues and what you should know before you book your venue. So we've got two people here. They're going to walk us through some of the basics, questions you should ask, things to look out for, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Brandy, why don't you go ahead?
Hi everyone, I'm Brandy from Nature Point Weddings and Events.
Perfect. And Marty?
Hi, and I'm Marty Houghton from El Zocalo Plaza in Bernalillo.
Perfect, perfect. Well, guys, I know that when you talk to couples, venues are usually one of the first things that they book. And then when they get that booked, they got a date locked in, a place locked in, and they're just off on wedding planning and super excited. But a lot of times in that excitement, I know things can kind of get lost and they're surprised by things that might have been told to them earlier, but that they just weren't paying attention to at the time. So that's why I wanted to go through and try to figure out things we could tell them to look for or be aware of before they get surprises. You know, surprises are great, but often not when it means budget and other issues that can become bigger issues as you get close to the wedding. So what do you try to do with brides or couples when they first come in? Brandy, you want to start?
Sure. So basically what I try to do is when we're walking around and I'm filling them with a lot of information about, some of our restrictions or rules, is I always try to tell them to have a piece of paper and a pen as we're going along. I think good note taking as far as any rules or requirements is that the venue may have itself, any sort of, noise restrictions, cutoff times for alcohol policies, that type of stuff. Anything that's going to kind of be a deal breaker for your actual day is something that you want to go ahead and take notes. And so what I always recommend is I do a facts and questions for Nature Point itself. And then I always tell them, like, you can kind of use this as a cheat sheet guideline for the questions you want to ask at the other venues. Because I always tell them, I feel like it's good unless you're completely concrete on, the venue that you're going, but if you're still looking, to go ahead and ask all those questions at the other ones. So a lot of times it's is there a service fee? Is there, there's some kind of hidden cost that, might throw the couple off and might make the decision for them and make them not want to, go that route if it's kind of a deal breaker situation. So I always just say, ask as many questions as possible. Try not to be so enamored with a place that you're not going to ask those really important questions, because falling in love with a place and having your vision is different than also understanding what kind of some of the rules are. So I don't want to say too much and then Marty not have anything to talk about as well. So I'll just leave it with that and just say is ask as many questions as possible and get a good vibe for who you're talking to as far as a director or coordinator, and make sure that they're forthcoming with a lot of the stuff as far as the venue.
Yeah. So I really liked your comment about taking notes and making sure that they take that and you having that cheat sheet for you. Because I know that there are a lot of costs that they're not hidden, but they're things that, like a cake cutting or a corkage fee, all these things that a lot of times if you're not thinking about and looking for, you don't hear what it is, and it kind of goes over your head. So
or you just don't know. Yeah, it's not that nobody's trying to deceive you. You just don't know. You don't know, and every venue is completely different as far as what they offer in their packages or what their rules are, restrictions. And so what could seem like a hidden, kind of thing and something that was deceiving to somebody else really wasn't. It's just that venue happens to have that instead. So
yeah, that sounds good. Okay, Marty, what about you? What do you try to tell couples to do and look
Well,
for?
I think that leads in really well to what my recommendation for the couples would be when you say, you have a list of frequently asked questions to give them direction on what they might not know yet. What I would segue to with that is to recommend that as clients, when you select your venue, you've made that choice. Maybe you fell in love that day and it felt like whirlwind, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Maybe now is a great time to know that your venue should be fully available to schedule some multiple follow-up appointments so that you have a time to talk about. In fact, I never sign the contract on the same day as the tour. I recommend let's have a contract signing appointment so that they can come back and we can talk about each thing that could potentially come up as pertains to the contract. You also, I recommend to the couples that they ask the question, okay, let's talk about just fees at this moment. What's included with my rental? What's additional? And how much am I paying in that additional fee and what is it for? It's not hidden, but it's separate from my rental fees. So what is it? How does that pertain to me? Why am I paying it? And so I like to also do one more appointment just for layout, to give them some time to see what would my venue look like on my, maybe a year before my event, if you have the time. What does the landscape look like? What is the greenery? How is the light going to look for my event? Really, I guess what I would say to clients in terms of your venue is really ask for what you are due in terms of additional appointments, follow-ups, and great contact with your planner or your point of contact at your venue.
Yeah, that is really important, having that bond with that person who's your point of contact too, because
Yeah.
you go through so many things and they do so many things besides just the basics. I know
Exactly.
from several people I know in the business who just, it's amazing what all you take care of. And
Mhm.
and you've got to have that bond and that trust and that relationship built to
Yeah,
have a
kind of.
good, successful day.
I kind of like to look at it as well as because our clients, the couples have so many other things to plan that if they have almost a timeline, like, hey, let's schedule 3 appointments at comfortable intervals leading up to your events so that you have this target date and we'll be taking care of those things without them sneaking up on you and surprising you.
Yeah, that sounds good. So is it a good idea to ask for a total all-in cost? Give me a total cost. I want
I
everything.
I usually will follow up with my clients with that because obviously each individual event has different total cost. But yeah, I think it's good for them to have that laid out for them.
Yeah. So, and what other things would you suggest before they come in to look for a venue? What should they be thinking about before they come to see you? Is there
Does
anything?
Brandy want to jump in first at all? Or, I mean, honestly, I think expectations management is a huge thing throughout events. And as a venue, if your clients, I think before they even come into a venue should know, hey, is this in my price range? Am I barking up the wrong tree? Does this provide the things that I want, or is it maybe more than I need or less than I need?
Good. So should they have, and Brandy, maybe you can ask this, is it important to have a date figured out and the number of people figured out too before you come in?
I think more importantly, it would be the number of the guests. I think it can change. I feel like for your dates, it's so different. Some people are so set on a specific date and they're very, very set. But the thing is if they're going to try to get a very popular venue, those are going to more than likely be the ones that are going to be taken early. So I would definitely recommend, like, see what their expectations are, like as far as their top priorities. Is it the date? Is it your guest count? So a large venue or a large guest count, you're going to need a large venue, which means that you're going to be very narrowed down to who all you can go to. So it's either going to be a large hotel, or if you happen to want a venue like mine and Marty's, it's going to be something that you're going to need to definitely find out the guest count ahead of time before coming and make sure we can accommodate you. I always tell people, as far as before coming into the venue, have an idea and a guideline as far as where you're wanting your money to go, because, for example, if your budget for, say, flowers is $2,000 or $3,000 and you're wanting real flowers, like, so you just want to kind of have like a guideline as far as what you're wanting. The other thing is some venues have they don't have an open vendor policy, which means now you're limited to only a certain food, which then is going to could I'm not going to say it always does, but it could increase your cost quite a bit for alcohol. And now, instead of kind of having options, you're being limited. So finding out that before you come, I think is a big deal, and where you want to put your money on. Because Nature Point is all inclusive when it comes to flowers, we have a lot of our flowers and our decor here already. So we kind of have ways to kind of save you money. We have cake stands, we have different things to kind of save you money. So, and I give them those ideas and tips before, but they need to know a reasonable budget that they're going to want before, because I feel like a lot of times either they're going to be wowed with the place, and next thing you know, they spent $20,000 and they're very upset and they're in debt for the rest of their lives, or they just kind of realistically know what the costs are going to be before coming in, and then they stick to it. You know, I feel like if they start price quoting everything and they start being really reasonable with themselves and they start making their priorities, then they can really cut down the cost without being in debt for the next 10 years because of a wedding, you know, however beautiful it is. So
I think that's really great too, you know, to manage their expectation, but also maximize, like Stacy was saying, the relationship with the venue. You know, in your case, you're able to help them control several costs, but oftentimes the venue really knows where they can save you the money from their perspective, and learning that relationship might help the clients also in dealing with their other vendors in a case like mine, where it's definitely the opposite of all inclusive. So they have a lot of work to do, but learning how to deal with a vendor favorably, you know, is probably a good thing, but knowing their budget is key, huge.
Yeah.
It really is.
So along with that, then, since you're not all inclusive, Marty, do you like walk them through, you're going to need this, 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 this. So they're not just out there on their own.
Absolutely. What I like to, you know, I point that out as I offer my tour. So, you know, as we come through a particular area, I'll say, well, you know, here is our warming kitchen. In this area, you know, in this area, you or the caterer of your choice can create your plating, your meal, you know, but that vendor, that relationship is something that you'll have to discuss with your potential caterer. So make sure that you have these things in mind when you have a conversation with the caterer. So I kind of, as I go through different areas of the venue, will say, okay, if you have a DJ, you know, this is where you're going to need to negotiate with your DJ, you know, and what sort of options might you need to be looking at.
Right. So what is the number one surprise? People come back to you and go, oh, I didn't know that. What's the number one?
I think that the one that we've had issues with most at El Zocalo, because it is semi-do-it-yourself, is the trash removal. So it's not so much a cost as a, hey, we're reaching the end of your event and you're responsible for removing the remnants, the trash, etc. And so with that, we've really, as a venue, in terms of training our staff, have been working on how are we addressing this conversation and how early, you know, because when we've had it come up where the client seemed unaware, then we need to take the conversation back to saying, as we talked about at the contract signing or during your planning, this is one of your responsibilities under the contract.
Okay. And what about you, Brandy? What's the number one thing people come back and you're like, oh, I didn't know, I didn't remember?
The fact that they have to stop the alcohol 1 hour before the event stops. So we're 15 minutes away from Albuquerque. And however, even though I feel like that's really close, if I'm zooming to an appointment, when you're, you know, having beverages, adult beverages at your wedding, we want to be as responsible as possible. And a lot of people do not like the fact that they have to stop their event by 10, but also that we make them stop drinking an hour before. And that is for our protection as well as just their protection and being as safe as possible. So they always come back, and, you know, that's kind of one of those little, you know, gray areas where they're like, and I always tell them, I say, guys, you're getting a 12-hour contract time. I promise you, you're not going to want to be drinking by 9 p.m. You're here at 10 a.m. getting ready. You're so tired. Maybe your guests want to keep doing it, but then that's when you can coordinate safely an after party somewhere. So if that's probably the one thing that they're like, gosh, you know, I wish things could be different. And, you know, don't we all?
Don't we all? Speaking of don't we all wish things were different, I know that a lot of people at venues are now going to be putting into place some COVID restrictions and COVID differences. How are you changing for that? Do you want to start, Brandy, with that?
Sure. As far as, do you mean
As far as
what our policies are right now?
When we can open up, and obviously we're still, when we're taping this, we're not at the point of being able to open up. But I know that several people are talking about waivers. You were talking about, Marty, a waiver that everybody's going to sign saying that, you know, responsibilities and
We're
those kind of.
we're creating an additional addendum to our policies that will include, again, sort of an extension of the relationship. We're going to provide additional sanitation, social distant layouts, and these A, B, and C items for you in consideration of COVID. But we also ask you to provide additional assistance in contact tracing, supporting us with your guests in terms of policies being followed, etc., so that we're extending that relationship building piece to include steps that be taken in order for us to hold an event in a COVID world.
Right. And it's sad, I've heard from several vendors who have gone to private weddings, backyard weddings that have been happening. And they've asked and said, you know, everybody wearing masks and going through a lot of those things. Like, yeah, that's going to happen. Yeah. And they get there and you got 30 people and no one's wearing a mask. It's a free for all.
But I think that's the venue does have a little bit of leverage over their, because they ultimately will control their event. And I'm certain that most venues have the ability to shut down an event that is not following existing necessary protocols, which we certainly would. I would assume that most venues do.
Yeah, and I've heard from vendors who are nervous about it and very, what do I do now? You know, I can't just walk out, but they're very upset that it's not the way that they had been told that it'd be set up. And it puts them in a bad position too. So I hope that couples are considerate of the vendors who they have told. They give a game plan and then it's not happening.
Kind of why we've created a bit of an addendum, an additional contract piece, that they are signing a document saying, I agree to support these situations, and et cetera. So yeah, it's completely untried at this point, and will we, get it into action or not? I guess we'll see.
We're in a brave new world. So, so do you have anything else you'd like to add, Marty?
I think that really, is up to me. The relationship piece is what clients should be expecting from us. And to be honest with you, as somebody who does this for a large part of my living, it's why I have the job that I do. I want to help you plan a really beautiful wedding. So don't be afraid to ask all these questions that come to mind. Don't be afraid to email me 4 times a day. I don't mind.
She really doesn't. I can tell you that. She's great with email. Okay, Brandy, what about you? What else do you want to add?
I mean, just understanding that we're all just going to, be as creative as possible with whatever these new guidelines are going to be. So, we're having to be understanding and understand that if you're wanting to have a wedding during this time, that we're all going to have to work together to make sure everybody is as safe as possible, as well as, getting as creative as possible. So that could look like, whereas your vision was initially, ceremony outside, reception inside, it could look like the whole thing outside now. So we're trying to come up with different things. Until the governor gives us a guideline, understand that we have no set, guideline of what we're going to do yet. We don't know. So we can pretend like we're going to know if there's going to be a dance floor or not. We have no idea what they're going to put forth. So until they open us up, we're all just as much as a loss as anybody else. We have no idea what we're going to do, and there's no direction. So we're making plans. We're trying to come up with ways to make sure your day is just as amazing as you envisioned it, while also being safe and making sure that not only is our staff going to be safe, but also that, your guests are going to be safe at the same time. So asking as many questions, ask about the COVID refund policies, because goodness knows something could come up and happen to your wedding, and you want to make sure that you're going to be covered and that you're okay with your venue. So just ask questions. And like I said, like Marty said, the connection that we make with you is genuine. We do care about your wedding. We care about your guests. We care about our staffing as well, and just let us do our job. We're here for a reason. Ask us as many questions. We can help point you to different directions of ways to save money and vendors. But being in the industry, we have a lot of knowledge that if you will just ask us and make a connection, we can help you.
Great, great. So basically I'm hearing too that you need to be flexible and be patient.
Yeah. Oh, which is not always easy.
I think we're all contortionists right now.
Yeah, we are. I think we are. Well, guys, thank you so much. And thank you. I'm Stacy from the Wedding Expo. And if you have any questions, reach out to Marty or Brandy. They're awesome, and they'll help you with answering other questions. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.